My name is Jeff Kunstler, and I'm excited to be hosting this presentation. I know I've worked with many of you on different RightFax projects, and I look forward to working with you again in the future. Today, we're going to discuss how RightFax can fit into your organization's cloud-first strategy. This has become an important goal for many organizations. In fact, we just finished migrating a large healthcare organization from an on-premise RightFax to RightFax hosted in the cloud. Today, we'll go through the steps we took to make sure this project was successful and how you can begin planning your migration. But first, let me tell you a little bit about Advantage Technologies. Advantage Technologies is a leading provider and integrator of RightFax, CloudFax, and document delivery solutions for over 20 years. We are the #1 RightFax authorized support provider and distributor in North America. Our USA-based support desk with senior certified RightFax engineers are available 24 hours a day, and our engineers are located in all 4 time zones. Our global customer base includes Fortune 100 companies, major hospitals, and government agencies. Okay, let's get started. So most organizations these days have some sort of footprint in the cloud. Maybe they have moved their email to Office 365 or using Teams for collaboration or spinning up VMs in Azure or AWS. Whatever it might be, organizations are realizing the savings associated with migrating some or all of their IT infrastructure to the cloud. Fax should not be left behind. However, when people think of migrating fax to the cloud, they think of a software as a service solution, like OpenText Fax to Mail, with a strictly per-page billing model. While we do provide our customers with this option, there are many things that need to be considered before jumping to a completely new system, especially understanding current software integrations and end-user workflows. But what we found is that most of our customers don't want to go this route while pursuing their cloud-first strategy. Instead, they are interested in migrating their existing RightFax infrastructure out to the cloud, leveraging their current license investment and maintaining their existing integrations and workflows. This is what we are calling infrastructure as a service cloud faxing solution. The healthcare organization that we just helped migrate RightFax to the cloud ended up putting it in Azure, but it could just as easily have been in any of the public clouds, such as Amazon, AWS, or Google Cloud, or a private cloud provider, if that works better for you. So now let's look closer at what benefits you get from hosting RightFax in the cloud. One of the driving forces for our customers to pursue this project was that they needed to refresh all their hardware. With this move, they would not need to purchase new hardware. Everything would be virtual. We discussed their current fax workflows, which included outbound faxing from Epic, inbound delivery to network folders, and multiple MFP integrations. After going through the limitations of a pure mail-to-fax service, we decided moving their RightFax system to their Azure cloud was the best way to go. Using a dedicated VPN to their cloud enables them to continue to use all their RightFax integrations with no loss of functionality. We help them port their existing inbound numbers to BabyTel T38-enabled SIP trunks and use special encryption software called CryptAgent to enable encryption of their fax traffic between AWS and BabyTel. We will discuss BabyTel in more detail later on in this presentation. After we built the new RightFax system in the AWS cloud, we migrated different groups to the new system and closely monitored performance. We found their fax error rates and speed to be as good or even a little better than it was when it was on premise, and the performance of their fax web client and enterprise fax manager was just as good as it was before. There was absolutely no difference in the user experience when using MFPs and no training needed since nothing changed on their user side. When the migration was complete, they greatly reduced the hardware overhead and increased reliability and redundancy of their fax environment. Now that I've covered why you may want to pursue your cloud-first strategy by migrating RightFax to the cloud, let's talk about how to go about actually doing it and the steps it takes for a successful migration. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, it is imperative you audit your fax workflows. How is fax used in your organization? What are your custom inbound and outbound fax workflows? Do you have any custom applications that integrate with RightFax? These questions need to be answered to help you decide what direction you will need to go when moving to the cloud. Your current infrastructure will also be a driving force on your decision to move to the cloud. You might want to continue using your current telephony provider, but they might not be available in the cloud you choose. You need to confirm your fax numbers can be ported to a new telephony provider if that is the decision you want to go, and you need to choose which cloud you want to move to. Considering how the move to the cloud could affect your end users is extremely important. Even though you can plan the move so there is little downtime, you most probably will be upgrading your RightFax server, so it might be necessary to roll out a new client and train on the new version. You need to also be aware of requirements of migrating or installing your new RightFax system in the cloud. Decisions need to be made regarding your connection to the cloud, such as a VPN or pure web access. There are also backend requirements such as SQL and the possibility of needing an SBC or virtual fax gateway. When moving on-premise solutions to the cloud, security plays an important role. You need to decide, is encryption of all data and communication a requirement? How will you do Active Directory authentication? And is the new environment compliant with industry regulations? Telephony is the most complicated consideration when moving RightFax to the cloud. Most major carriers do terminate traditional MPLS SIP trunks to the major cloud providers, but are they optimized for T38 fax? Do you want to segregate your fax traffic from your voice and data traffic is another consideration. And as I mentioned in the earlier slides, we can work with you on finding the best solution for your connection to the PSTN when moving RightFax to the cloud. Okay, so let's talk a little more about choosing an ITSP, which is an Internet Telephony Service Provider. It's imperative that your provider be optimized for T38 fax. We have a strong relationship with BabyTel and have been working with them for many years. There are other T38 SIP providers out there, so let's look at some of the features that might influence your decision to choose one over the other. So the first is CryptAgent versus VPN. CryptAgent is a small piece of software you install on your RightFax server that will encrypt the fax communication between your RightFax server and BabyTel. There are no additional ports that need to be opened, so CryptAgent is the perfect complement to run with RightFax and BabyTel trunks. The level of effort to configure CryptAgent versus VPN back to your ITSP is much less and can be configured in less than 1 hour. Since BabyTel is one of our strategic partners, you can come to us to help with any issues you may have with your fax system, giving you a one-stop shop for any faxing issues. Finally, let me walk you through a typical Advantage RightFax upgrade project. We break the project into 3 phases. Phase 1 is installing the new RightFax system. During this phase, we will work with you on provisioning the virtual server, installing the latest version of RightFax, licensing RightFax, and doing the base configuration of the system. Phase 2 is configuration and migration. We will make sure your new system is configured the same way as your current production and fully test all functionality. This phase also includes the migration of old data and faxes to the new environment. Finally, phase 3 is when we cut over to the new system. During this phase, it will be necessary to initiate the port of the inbound fax numbers to the new ITSP connected to your RightFax server in the cloud. It will also be necessary to update your client configurations so everything is pointed to the new fax server. Phase 3 will almost always involve some downtime. We will work with you to limit this downtime and continue to test as you go live on the new environment. Okay, so let's go through the takeaways. First, including fax in your cloud strategy provides major benefits for your organization. Hosting RightFax in the cloud allows you to leverage your existing license, investment, and ease the transition for end users. And finally, planning is the biggest key for successful migration of RightFax to the cloud.